Welcome, everyone, to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday Night Creator Convo. I'm Noelle Marshall, and I'm here with my beloved.
Hi, everyone. This is Bob Warner. So glad that you're with us this evening. Amah, we're really looking forward to this conversation. Wow. Have someone like yourself bringing your gift to the shift in humanity to this community is wonderful. And in timeless time, many others are watching this on Facebook and will watch it on our archives on our Co-Creators Convergence in the archives section in the weeks ahead. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for hosting me.
But first, I want to tell you about the Co-Creators Convergence, the other very exciting guests we have coming up, and then we'll do a centering, and then I'll do a formal introduction of our guest, Amah Sia, and then we'll be off to the races and see what I know she has something really special planned for us. So I know some of you are watching on Facebook. Don't be bashful. Come on into the room. There's going to be great conversation as well. So right now, I'm going to tell you about a little bit more about the Co-Creators Convergence. So please stand by. So that is a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence. So thank you all for coming. And we do have one other video that we'd like to share tonight, kind of our centering. So let me cue that up, and I'll be with you just one moment to share this beautiful, beautiful thing about unity.
You are invited to experience unity. It's time to put aside the differences that divide us. And embrace the beauty of each one of us being different, being unique, being ourselves. In the essence of who we truly are. A beautiful array of human beings across the planet. So many different ways of being human. So let us get to know each other. Let's spend time with each other. Let's learn from each other. And let's open our hearts to each other. And let's find the unity that exists right in the middle of the richness of our diversity. We are human. We are unique. We are one.
So welcome, Amah. I'm
Thank you.
so happy to have you here and so glad that Brian Russo introduced us. I guess that was a couple months ago. It just seems unbelievable. It's been that long. But I love your movie. I've watched it twice, and that's not enough. That's just the beginning. But before we hear more from you, let me tell people exactly who we have here with us. It's amazing. Amah Sia is an intuitive channel and teacher. She offers neuroscience-based and spiritually infused coaching and healing experiences for those seeking personal and professional insight, meaning, and purpose. She's a teacher of subtle technology, skills that connects one's real-world capacities with their higher intelligence. She is also an evolutionary visionary of humanity's part within the whole of the planetary consciousness. And you can learn more about Amah Sia at amahsia.com. And then also her film is at unprecedentedleap.com. So Amah Sia, thank you so much for your patience with me as we had a few technical things go on here. But I welcome you. And as I said, I just think that, we're just so excited. And I know that you have a presentation that you'd like to share with us. I'm here to serve. So if there's anyone that anything that you need, just let us know. And I just want to read one thing that describes your film. It says the film weaves together diverse and multiple threads. That's for sure. Life, love, consciousness, human development, duality, evolution, spiritual adepts, the lightbody, holons, earth, we spaces, alchemy, morphogenetic fields, artificial intelligence, and more into a new tapestry of our planetary future. So that is a whole high level college course right there. So I'm very excited to have you here, and I turn the magic talking stick over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Noelle, for including me here and letting me speak about, obviously something that is deeply passionate and a lifelong learning for me. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some excerpts out of the film and show them individually and again, weave together what we're going to be doing here today. And so I'm going to just start with a little bit of a PowerPoint. But basically what you have here is what we're going to be talking about today. And it's the evolution of love, of life, of consciousness, which in my film, I basically have the premise where love, life, and consciousness are synonymous. And it's something that science can't quantify or even fully prove. and they all work together, and we're in the evolution of life here on the planet. We're in the evolution of consciousness here on the planet, and we're also in the evolution of love here on the planet. So today we're going to do, it's going to be a bit educational. So we're going to go through some of the aspects of the film. It's also going to be experiential, in that we're going to have at the end a guided meditation. So what we're going to start with here is the first short film is going to introduce us and our evolution here on this planet. And we'll be taking a deeper look at this in the short film we're going to see here. And we're going to then talk about the uploading of intelligence and downloading of intelligence that produces the leaps of consciousness that we're participating here on the planet. So this is the first film, and I'm going to run that. It's only 2.5 minutes. And then after that, we'll be able to come back together for a little bit of a discussion.
In our story of love, life, and consciousness, it is necessary to begin with our place within this larger whole. When did we first appear? Outdated textbooks tell the story like this. We now know this isn't exactly how things happened, and that there are still many unanswered questions. This film will follow the mounting evidence that biological evolution is guided in 2 ways: by an underlying pre-physical structure of intelligence, and by real-time infusions of consciousness at our evolutionary emergent edge. Love cannot be proved, nor can the origin of life or the existence of consciousness. We are embedded in them. In fact, we are them. They are the underpinnings of our reality. This field of love, of life, of consciousness is the continuing emanation of the big breath, the exhale of supreme intelligence, which imbued our universe with the intention to evolve from its original simplicity to complexity, held in an underlying pre-physical blueprint of evolutionary intelligence, whose fractal patterns are uploaded into form, giving rise to our physical world. These fractal patterns create the rooting that gives structure into which creativity, infusions of light intelligence, of consciousness, can then be downloaded, triggering leaps of evolutionary emergence. This uploading and downloading of non-physical intelligence paved the way for the manifestation of individuated, self-aware, sovereign beings capable of awakening as the beloved.
There's a lot in that piece, and I find it so interesting that this is what we're going to be talking about today, that the evolution of consciousness gets activated. There's an underlying blueprint, and then we're also downloading these impulses of intelligence, and it's a fascinating process. So that's what I wanted to just have a little bit of a conversation about. Maybe your thoughts on this, this evolutionary process we're in.
Well, one thing that I said, thought is that you said we can't prove consciousness, but can't we? Because with the wave and the dot theory, that depended on the consciousness of the person, didn't it? You know what experiment I'm talking about.
Yeah. But I'm saying actually is that we can't find the origins of consciousness.
Ah, okay.
We can't find the origins of love. We can't find the origins of life.
Okay.
So there's a mystery. That they're all synonymous in a certain way, that they come as aspects of this infusion into form, this big breath, that they're linked. We're at the edges of where life evolves, where consciousness evolves, and where love evolves. And that's the
Okay.
underlying premise of my work.
Okay. You know, I have to tell you, we're students of Barbara Marx Hubbard, and she had two films. And the first one was called Humanity Ascending. And that was the series, and I forget the name of each one of them. But we showed her first film, Humanity Ascending. And it had that old hierarchy.
The chimpanzee to the Homo sapien. Mhm.
When she's talking about the increased complexity, you know. And so it's kind of interesting to see that you've gone like, no. What is we're talking about? But when that light came in, when that consciousness came in, so your presumption is there was a leap, and that's when we started to connect with the light, with the energy that was coming in.
My premise is that you see it actually in the film. You don't see it in this clip, but you see it in the film where all of a sudden there's this leap of consciousness and you see it expressed in caves where there's all of a sudden art that we recognize as art from our perspective of what art is. It's not just sort of crude hatchings. It's as expressive as anything that we have in our museums today.
Mhm.
And that these long bones of that they punctured the holes in, it's an octave of sound, so all of a sudden we have music, we have art, and that, and all of a sudden there's something obviously very different going on. And so we'll be seeing here another film that from a philosopher by the name of Ken Wilber. We'll be seeing him next, where he documents, and other people have done it through spiral dynamics, and there's been other people that have structured these leaps of consciousness. But you can see that these leaps are occurring, and they're occurring much more rapidly, and that we're in the middle of a tremendous bombardment of light and uploading of information that's shifting something radical within us. And all the speeding up of technology and all the speeding up of, we could feel it, the pace of life is this raising of frequency that's like propelling us into something unprecedented, which is what the film is about. But I'm here to talk about us experiencing.
Yes,
this.
it's exciting and it's terrifying. Yes.
Yeah, because it's really the unknown, and it's and it's I talk about it in the film, like these higher frequencies also trigger the shadow material that's within us and within the collective, and it gets more in order to be integrated, in order to be expressed, in order to be brought into consciousness. It floods us, and there's a lot going on, a lot of shadow material, and the whole world of collective trauma is just revealing itself with people that are very, very skilled in understanding the dynamics of collective trauma.
I also found interesting in this clip the mystery of not knowing the origin, consciousness, life, and love. And it made me think about the contemporary conversation, including conversation in the United States Congress. When does life begin? And when so there's political theater. One character is playing a role in the political theater, asking somebody that's testifying before Congress, when does life begin? And we know that there are multiple religions, now organized religions, that have a different definition of when life begins for an individualized human being. This is asking the bigger question of, before one person's life began and their parents' life began and their parents' life began, all the way back to the beginning, where is the origin of life? And it brings me, and I said all that I said about political theater and all that stuff over here on the side that you get to later in the movie, about the chaos that we're living in today, of people arguing about things and all the other things that are going on in our current state of evolution. Put it all over into that pot. But I appreciate the mystery of the large question that you're asking in this clip as it relates to life.
Yeah. And I experience it too as the sacredness You know,
Mm,
that which is beyond us, that which you know, when we see it in nature and we see awe and we bow down, you know, there's a way that we, you know, experience something reverential. You know, we experience
mhm.
awe. There is something that's bigger than, and we realize it, that's bigger than us.
Right.
And you know, the sacredness of
Mhm.
life, sacredness of love, the sacredness of consciousness.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Shall we move on to your next clip, or did you want to share some more?
Yeah, there is a piece, and you know, again, it's controversial. This whole question of when does life begin?
Mm.
And you know, you mentioned it, like it's actually it's almost like that. I love the big breath, which is you know, the Vedic way of saying,
Mhm.
you know, rather than the big bang, which feels so sort of like mechanical. So there's this like emanation of life, of love, of consciousness that flows, that continues, and there isn't, from anything that we can say, is the origin or the moment it begins. It's something that's beyond us. And so when you look at, you know, the
Mhm.
downloading, the intention of consciousness, or from the soul. So if you look at a descent into form, you know, of a will to evolve and to incarnate, you can say that there's an impulse of life that's moving through the different dimensions in order to incarnate. And that basically when the brain becomes able to it begins to be able to be stimulated by the life itself, is when kind of like life as a form of consciousness, they connect.
Mhm.
And so before that, there's the life force moving through, creating the divisions of the cells and everything, but there's no intelligence, there's no brain, there's nothing telling those cells what to become. There's a morphogenetic field that's telling these cells to be muscles and these cells to be a brain and these cells, and that at a certain point these are evolved enough to be able to have an awakening experience where it's able
Mm.
to be uh, aware. So there's you know, the certain layers of awareness that begins to happen within the womb, but it's a growing phenomenon of the physiology of being able to recognize, be able to be conscious. The brain is sophisticated enough to be conscious within the womb. And so there's a really beautiful flow that happens from not being able to be conscious of you know, the life is coming in, and then a moment where the physiology is awake enough to be able to be aware. And you can see that develop in the, you know, the various trimesters. So I think I don't think there's ever a moment where it's all a continual flow of this big breath that moves into life. So I love these kind of deep conversations. You know,
Yeah,
that
it reminds me in the uh,
Yeah.
Jewish tradition that
which tradition?
Jewish
Uh-huh.
is that the child is not, or the infant is not born until it takes its first breath.
Life begins at first
That's
breath.
when life begins, with first breath.
Ah, well, that's beautiful, because it is an alignment with the big, you know, the big
Yeah.
breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the big breath much
Yeah.
better than the Big Bang, which was, I think it was coined by a priest scientist.
The Big Bang.
Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and then there's, you know, people say that they, you know, people have, you know, memory, can have memories of the womb, you know, some, you know, but you wonder where that's stored in the consciousness. You know,
Right.
because the brain doesn't really begin to put down memory until, you know, it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years old. And the brain isn't sophisticated enough to
And
be
you
able
know,
to
even
really
if
memory.
I'm sorry, but you know, even if somebody doesn't remember you know, the birth itself, I have friends who have had ailments and it's been related to the birth process itself. And so even though they didn't have a, you know, a memory of it, something had a memory of it,
Right. Right. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's stored
Yeah.
there somewhere, somehow, right?
Well, it's that morphogenetic field. And I do a lot of work around, you know, the light body and where memory is stored, and, you know, and that the brain is just sort of the receiver, you know, the hardware of a much more uh, larger field of intelligence that stores memory. You know, so we're constantly working, you know, our light body is that storage field, and it's that light body is there telling those individual cells, the template is there telling those original stem cells what to do, and the heart beats before there is a brain. So there's a consciousness that is there surrounding this development before a brain even exists.
So maybe this is the moment for my question about where does the existence of soul, whatever that word means, fit into, how does it relate to the word consciousness that you're using in the context of this clip and in the full documentary? And the reason I asked the question is, Deepak Chopra has been on Oprah and they have conversation about soul and what is a soul and when does it start and where did it come from and does it reincarnate, and if it's a stillbirth, is there a soul in that quote body that never makes it out of the birth canal, and all that kind of conversation. And I just appreciate your perspective on how we use that word soul, and if it relates at all to the word consciousness in this conversation about the unknown mystery.
It absolutely does. And what I'd like to do is just pause a minute here and see where I'd like to start. Okay, so we talked about the big breath. So if you look at it as that's the origin of that source going, right? So if you look at this expansion of into manifestation, and you think about that expansion being held by, you could use the metaphor of a balloon. So the balloon is expanding. So the distance between the original source and the edge of that balloon is increasing in time. So this is time moving forward, and space is expanding. So we have space-time. And on the edges of this balloon, you could put the little galaxies and you can see them, we can measure them moving away from each other as the space expands. And so it's speeding up, and so it's expanding. So if you look at the edges of this balloon, the balloon itself being the crystallized where evolution is happening. So the evolution is the most dense in third dimension in crystallized form out here. And so it's less dense, it moves into differentiation, it moves into crystallization at its edges, which is what we're participating in, is this manifestation in form. And it's the furthest distance from the original big breath moment. Okay. So my premise in my film is that the intention of this entire thing is an experience of love. So there's the creator and the creation, and and as creation awakens in form, it's able to participate as the beloved, and that you can understand duality and the power of crystallizing into form, where you can become the most differentiated, the most, we would say that it's the separation, but it's actually the individuation as you mature into it that allows for the most profound capacity to love. So if you look at our spiritual adepts in this earth, it's like they're all masters of love. That's what the most evolved beings here are able to do. And that's the power of the third dimension, is it's the most intense relationship with source, because it's the most separated, it's the most individualized, it's the most crystallized into form. And so in between, as you move in, so you could look at it that the higher dimensions move back towards source. So they become much less, as you go into oneness, which is closer to source, you move back into that relationship with source. You can begin, but you're still, even as you become to witness oneness, you're still there going, I'm experiencing oneness. So there is still a witness, which is interesting. Okay, so there is this awakenedness that can happen as you even move back into relationship. So source's intention is love. So source's intention is to have individuated, awake beings that can be in that reciprocity.
Mhm.
I love that.
So
Yeah.
isn't that beautiful? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
hence why we have duality. I mean, this this is why, this is the intention. This is why we need duality, because love is an act, love is a verb. Love it by itself means nothing. So soul is a less crystallized form. It's an individuated consciousness. It's vast. So what source does is then there's individuated pockets, or you would have a membrane around it, so it holds its individuation, but it's more diffuse than it is in crystallized form. So a soul is a much, much vaster field of consciousness. And the way that soul evolves is by incarnating into form.
Hmm.
So it goes down and it incarnates, and it has a whole lot of experiences, and it goes, wow, that was rough, or that was great, or, like, holy cow, did I learn that? And I fell in love, and I awoke one morning and there was this mountaintop, and I was like, oh my gosh, I understand the divine. And then that soul died, the person, that incarnation, the soul doesn't die, the incarnation dies.
Right.
The body drifts away, and the intelligence that we were talking about earlier in the morphogenetic or auric field stays, but the higher aspects of the light body move back into the soul.
Hmm.
So the soul is a receptacle of many, many lifetimes of information, not necessarily on Earth. So that kind of gets us into a whole other different conversation.
Right.
So I like to look at the soul as a big pantry of really cool ingredients that the soul can choose from when it, like right now, I meet a lot of people that my film talks about the consciousness of the planet. Okay, so right now there's something going on where the planet is awakening. And there's certain people at a soul level that hear this, oh my gosh, this is happening. Let me incarnate now and participate as the actual participation, the thing that awakens. I want to be that. I want to be part of that. So as we awaken and become part of that morphogenetic field of people that are experiencing or having transpersonal experiences, we create a field that's intelligence to trigger this next activation of consciousness, which is the planet itself awakening. But I digress. Okay. So there's a way that we hear a call. The soul says, oh, I want to participate in evolution. Let me incarnate into form. Send down an impulse, which is actually a line of will. I teach about it in my courses. It's called the haric line. So you want to talk about the hara, and there's a line of will that comes down and boom, connects with a conception, and life begins. And the auric field gets created, and the physical body gets created, and that person begins to have an incarnation that evolves in crystallized form. And then that information, all that was learned and all the things that didn't go so well, all of it then gets brought back into the soul as an evolutionary update to that soul. So the soul is a massive field of information and various lifetimes. But then also in the soul, the way they look to me is they look like strings of pearls. So you can have an incarnational strand where the soul will incarnate like a certain, you see them like, these children, savants that come in, and, they're just like playing like Beethoven at, 3. So they come in with a lot of information from past lives. And so there's a way that it's not necessarily just one incarnation that can happen, but a series of incarnations working on a particular theme, maybe music, maybe, creating co-creators convergences because you're into the evolution of consciousness. You've been doing this over many lifetimes. And when you've learned those lessons, all that information comes back into the soul. And maybe there's more incarnations after that, and maybe not. Maybe you go off to some other place and do something else. But this is the way that I see the soul. So when there's a stillbirth, that even that process of coming into form that far, that process, that information, then is released back into the soul body.
Wow. That is fascinating. You know what I'm thinking of, Noelle, is sitting at dinner with, we're never going to get to the second clip. This is just,
that's okay. I have a feeling.
This is
let's
juicy.
just talk.
This is very juicy. I'm remembering sitting at the Roskis, the intentional community up in the mountains with Barbara Marx Hubbard at dinner one night. And she asked the question, we heard her ask it many times, never answered it, just asked it. What if, and what you've been talking about sounds to me like a piece of the answer to this question, is what if when we leave this incarnation and we go away, we would come back, quote, come back, reincarnate with this, with all that we had gained in the advancement of our consciousness during the current iteration. What if we came back in the next incarnation and we picked up where we left off, instead of what we tend to look at today and go, well, they didn't learn anything last time they were here. It seems like they're, from an evolutionary standpoint, judgment statement, of course, but she asked that question many times of what would things be like if?
Yeah.
And what you're describing
It's
sounds
always a
like
choice, though. You know,
collective.
you come in with it, but then do you decide to use it?
Use it or forget it, or
Well, also, there's a vastness to the intelligence of the soul that is doing something very specific. So it can be that they're in another incarnational time, there was a lesson that needed to be learned. And so, it wouldn't be needed to bring in an incarnation with all the skills intact. There's some rough edges that need to be worked through. And so a soul can incarnate, with various different, issues, whether it's into a family that it has some rough patches, or in a body that it has particular challenges. There's all sorts of ways. We sort of view this thing of what a successful life would look like from a lot of collective agreements. And so there's a way that all of this is evolving and going through what it needs to go through, even when you look at evil, and we see human beings that we recognize are doing things that are evil. There's a way of a turning away from love that is a reactive act that is based always in trauma. There's a wounding, there's a desperation, there's a rage, there's a et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that always comes from something terrible. And so there's a need in this process to integrate that, to process that, and if it can't be done in that lifetime, it still stays in the collective body, and it stays within the soul, and needs at a certain point to be healed of incarnation.
Getting back to what you were saying about souls, coming here, it just seems like there's over 8 billion on the planet right now. And so I was just like, why are they all coming? Why are we, why is it so crowded here?
Well, partly that there's this tremendous activation of light going on that's creating this emergent. So I talk in the film about holons and the emergence of the next whole, and how there's enough people that have been able to reach certain levels of consciousness that have created a field that have activated this new leap of consciousness, where the planet itself is becoming a conscious being. And this is a radical thing to happen in the universe. Basically, if you look at it, if you take sort of our perspective out of it, where we think it's about us, and you can see these massive downloads of light as being done to the planet, and we are the awakening, or the self-observant witnessing part of that planetary consciousness that goes, oh my gosh, look what's happening. But we experience it as happening to us. But it's actually the planet that's being activated. And so if you look at it, if you start to look at it from intelligences, I call them interdimensional intelligences rather than ETs or UFOs. I call them interdimensional intelligences, okay? Where so it's our aspect of our soul is an interdimensional intelligence that can choose to incarnate here or someplace else or wherever else it needs to evolve. So the earth itself is an incredible place to incarnate because you get to participate in physical form in this relationship to source. It is all about love. So it is the place where it happens. Rubber hits the road in third dimensional reality. And the more that you can awaken your consciousness to becoming multidimensional, you can participate with it from a very different vantage point. You don't feel as separate. You feel awake and individuated and able to participate in a multidimensional whole. So this is a place, this is an awakening, birthing planet. It's a portal of life, of love, of consciousness that awakens here. And all these different intelligences can incarnate here and cross-pollinate this whole thing, which is also really cool. So from a cosmic or galactic, which is a galaxy that we're living in, there's a part of our galaxy that is this birthing portal of life, of just such incredible abundance. So it's interdimensional intelligence can incarnate not necessarily just as humans. It can incarnate as dolphins. It can incarnate as mycelium. There's lots of ways that interdimensional intelligence can incarnate as aspects of the planetary consciousness. So this is a wild moment where this quickening is happening and the intelligence of the planet is awakening. So all these different interdimensional intelligences, it's an incredible time to incarnate here and participate, to be the part of it that is awakening. So as we awaken, the whole awakens, and it activates the next whole. And so we get called to participate in this evolutionary moment. So a lot of soul intelligence came here to do that.
That's a very interesting take I haven't heard before. But, from what I, hear, is that there are a lot of souls just waiting for bodies to come here.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, this is the time. And,
Yeah.
The other thing that's really interesting from your movie is when you talk about these leaps that we have, that is getting faster and faster and faster.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm wondering how that relates to people, souls knowing, hey, there's going to be a leap. We got to get on that ride because we want to.
Right. So the soul, you could say the soul listens. The soul is involved in this. Its soul is evolving, and so it can be a part of this planetary leap. So there's a call that goes out. You can think of it as Earth calling to those that would come to participate in. Like, now's the time. And those like you, Bob, have heard the call and say, I will be the one that awakens. I will participate. I will be the activating force.
Well, the other thing, can I just say that when you were talking about Gaia, I always think of Gaia as already awakened.
It's a life birthing given, but it's not self-observant.
Okay.
That's the shift where it becomes, so that's why I'm really clear in the film where, Ken Wilber calls it life itself at its most primary level, Gaia. But then something else is awakening where so I talk about holons in the film, where the superior holon then can start to create the probabilities for the junior holons, the structures within its consciousness. So what we're moving now into is that humanity, by awakening or moving into transpersonal states, created the possibility for Harmonia to awaken. Now that she now begins to set the probabilities for where the whole is going. And that's new, that we've never experienced. And we're just learning to communicate with her, to learn and interact with each other in new ways and a new paradigm. So basically all our structures are at the, that's the other piece I have in the film, like that famous Einstein quote. This is, all the things, the problems that we have now can't be solved here. We need what is that new paradigm? Literally a new paradigm. And this is what's coming online with this planetary consciousness now able to set the probabilities for herself.
Now,
of which
you
we are
used the
part.
word there, harmonia.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain that word? Because you haven't
Okay,
used that before.
that is when I was working with the holonic structures of emergence. So holons emerge. You get three atoms. You get two oxygen and then hydrogen, and you put them. They come together and they go boom. You get water, which is a whole nother structure that is necessary for life. And then you could look at the next leap of evolution would be the cell that then has water as part of it. And the cell has agency over the water in it. So it creates a membrane and it can tell the water what to do. So the cell sets the probabilities. So basically we see these leaps happening. So cells create organs create a body, and all our organs create a human being, which is a whole in and of itself. So these are steps of evolution. And when the system is ready, boom, the new comes online. And that's what I've been receiving. Other people are talking about it too. The planet is awakening in a way that is not just life-giving, but becoming conscious and sentient and aware. And that's radically different. So I said, we've been calling this life-giving being Gaia, life itself, Gaia.
Right.
So I was looking for a new word, and I chose harmonia because of the harmonic nature of this, and also because of the word harmony, that now that she is this guiding capacity, we were able to set the conditions by learning how to be in, it's like unity consciousness and things of this nature, learning how to be in coherent fields, learning how to be in new states of consciousness that are harmonic and coherent. So she awakens out of this capacity. So I called her Harmonia. And you can call us Harmonians.
I love that.
That's why, to differentiate from Gaia, that's something new that we're just beginning to learn to work with and be informed by is happening. And that's why I called it Harmonia.
I love that. Well, you mentioned Ken Wilber, and I love his work. And I would like if you would share about, I'd love how you broke it down for me in your film.
Yeah.
And if you want to go to that, that'd be pretty awesome.
Human development is a fascinating process. Personal and collective individuation is so integral to our capacity to fully love that it is worth spending some time understanding this beautiful process. To do this, we are going to work with a stages of development chart as theorized by the philosopher Ken Wilber. Notice that it has 3 tiers, which are colored with a rainbow spectrum of color. The first tier begins the journey of humanity's history, starting with infrared and the ancient collective level called archaic, and the first anatomically modern humans. 200,000 years later, humanity moved into a stage signified by the color magenta, a world of magic, which is tribal, full of ritual and superstition. At the color red, humanity moved into a warrior world that was traditional, ethnocentric, and conformist. At amber, 5,000 years ago, the mythical world came online with its conformity, ethnocentrism, and faith in an all-powerful God or order. Coming online a mere 300 years ago is the orange, rational, modern worldview, which developed scientific experimentation and reasoning, as well as democratic procedures and institutions. At green, we see our postmodern world, which appeared during the 1960s with its new worldviews promoting civil rights and the care and protection of the environment. Approximately 95% of the world's population is in the higher levels of the first tier structure. The second and third tiers are truly spiritual levels, the place where vertical development and spirituality unite. At teal, one sees natural hierarchies. You see a bigger picture that integrates the inner and outer worlds of your body, emotions, mind, heart, and spirit. The level of turquoise is exciting. You see the world as alive and evolving. You can also question your assumptions and are open to not knowing. When fully embodied at this level, one lives from both their personal self and transpersonal self simultaneously. The third tier levels of indigo and into white are realities beyond the self. At present, an approximate and unprecedented 5% of the population is at second or maybe even third tier. When we include all the individuals whose consciousness has ever reached these levels of awareness, we discover a dynamic collective field of intelligence. This field is so important to the next stages of our development that I need to pause and weave a few more pieces into our unfolding story. Let's begin by zooming out a bit to view the phenomenal moment we are embedded in. In our discussion, we have viewed the uploading and downloading of light as the activating factors in humanity's stages of development. But humanity is not a passive byproduct of these infusions. These leaps of consciousness were actually humanity's response, our innate upward impulse to evolve and to awaken as the beloved. And our evolution gets even more interesting. The time between these evolutionary leaps of consciousness is rapidly speeding up. The activating downloads of light have propelled this escalation, meaning that in our era, each person, no matter their level of development, is receiving absolutely massive infusions of light.
There's an interesting parallel between this holonic evolution and our own stages of development. So one of his famous phrases is include and transcend, which I talk about.
Include and transcend.
Include and transcend. So basically, when the next stage of evolution or human development happens, you can see it in an individual. In the film, I talk about the move from learning how to crawl on all fours to being able to walk upright. So we don't lose the ability to crawl. So we include that in our abilities, and then we transcend it into a totally different way of moving around the world. Okay, so that's the include and transcend. And so basically
Makes
the
sense.
premise is that when a true transcendence happens, we don't get rid of anything. So it's like the whole thing about the scientific revolution, which is why I have it in the film. So a lot of new agey people, it's like, oh, science messed everything up. We lost all our spirituality because of science. It's like, no, actually, we gained objectivity, which we couldn't have psychotherapy if we weren't able to be objective about our emotions. It's like, I am not my emotions. I'm having a feeling. Okay, I can deal with that. But we all this way of watching the mind, mindfulness meditation in and of itself is a scientific methodology in the sense that it's observing it. Okay, so we needed this. Again, it's more about differentiation. It's more about individuation. It's more about being able to be more sovereign. It's like I have all these different parts, including my emotions, including my history, including everything. So again, is the more I can include my emotions, my thoughts, the more include my body and its sensations, the more I can transcend into my next evolution. So that's true on a personal, physical, individual level, and that's also true culturally. So, the 1960s included the scientific revolution, this green or this new cultural world that we moved into that had civil rights and all these different types of awakenings, interpersonally, included science, and then transcended science. And now we're in another process of including all of the evolution. You know, we got to protect the environment. We got to have social, relationships. We need to have civil rights. Now we're actually transcending those paradigms as well. So that's the individual and the collective version of growth. So there's physical, like holonic leaps, and then there's stages of development. And Ken Wilber talks about that a lot.
Right. And you do a beautiful job of explaining that and bringing it out in your movie, the different tiers, the different colors, and how that happened historically and how it happens as we individuate. And that was really very, very powerful. And I also like how you talked about alchemy with John and Paul
McCartney, John Lennon, Paul McCartney.
That was really great, example of how you brought them together.
Well, but what happened to me is I began to receive all this information about this leap of consciousness that was happening on a planetary level. And I began to say, okay, how am I going to, and so I'm not a student of integral theory. I'm not, but I found enough number of paradigms that I could use to explain what was happening in my mystical experiences. So one of them is I began to, when I would get together with a close friend, we would be, like playing jazz. It's like boom, boom, you would get into that, and all of a sudden you'd be playing something that you would never have known how to play unless you were riffing with that person. Okay, so I began to have these experiences of this third thing. Now, Jesus said, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, there's Christ consciousness. Okay, so there's this way that we're learning how to create these fields, whether it's just with one other person, like, Paul McCartney, great, John Lennon, great, put them together, boom, something again unprecedented. Okay, so you get this third that is full of new information. So these are the skill sets that we need to learn to create a methodology around, so that we are looking at global warming. Let's get people into a field where we're coherent enough, and people that are intelligent enough with the data that they can begin to enter into these states of consciousness and play jazz. Begin to be able to learn how to create this third. That's where you create a large enough field, you create a communal field of downloading new intelligence, and that's alchemy. Is that third?
That's exactly what the co-creators convergence is about. Because once a year we get together and we put a theme, and then we don't make an agenda. We just say, here's our theme. This year's theme is joy, but we've had about many different things over the 11 years that we've gotten together. And so somebody says, well, I do this, and that's related to that theme, and I want to have an experience with the group. And so we have what we call the weavers, who weave together the different activities that we do. We're together for about 5 days. And then it's so joyful, because what emerges, we could never plan. When you have that experience where you go like, we did this together. How did it happen? We could never have planned this. And isn't this like the most amazing outcome?
And that's part of it too, is the safety. So it's because it requires trust. And it also requires people because when you begin to create these fields and you begin to download light and upload information, you're raising the frequency of your light body and the body of the group. And so whatever then is repressed in shadow within one's individuality or within the group, collective trauma, also begins to come up. Okay? So you need people that have done enough personal growth work, enough maturity to be able to handle their own stuff and somebody else's stuff when it comes up, and to be able to hold the coherence. So there's real personal work that needs to be done in order to create the fields that you're creating.
Yeah, and that's interesting you say that, because I look back, we started out with Barbara Marx Hubbard was in the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them. But, as a group, we have a lot of the same, a lot of return attendees, but I can see the growth in all of us over these
Yes.
years. That
Mm.
what the first couple years were like, we were polishing each other, you know, and
Right.
you know,
Right.
there was some frustration with others, and now it's just like, you know, you just get high, you know, and on creation, really.
Yeah.
And it ends up being books or new organizations or new
Exactly.
therapy, and so what you're saying is really what you know, I think we experience when this, you know, group gets together, which is always open to anyone, but yeah, it's really
So what I do, you know, I hinted this in the film. I don't outright say it, but we, as these, you know, basically all the new physical skills come online, whether it's the internet's global brain, it's the AI, it's all these physical, exponential physical skills. We need to have methodologies, actual skill sets that create the conditions that you're talking about.
right.
And so what I teach in my courses is how to individually be able to hold that multidimensionality, to be able to listen to your higher capacities while you're watching your mind go, I don't think so. You know, your mind's going, I was, you know, my mother said I can't do that, you know, I'm really angry now, you know, so I teach, you know, how to surrender what you know, all of this we created because of the incredible capacity of our mind, our brain, our, you know, but now we're ready to include and transcend the mind.
So where do you think we're going? You know, I know that there, you know, give us your outlook.
I think we're going to, well, first of all, we're beginning to experience the fields like you're talking about. Okay, so where you can create, you know, fields like that where new capacities new thoughts, you know, the downloading can happen. That's why I use the alchemy can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we're beginning to really notice this, and that there's a methodology here. We got to hack this. Like, how do we, okay, we need, you know, the Einstein quote that we need to rise to a next level. Okay, great. How do we do that?
Right.
Okay, so you're talking about, well, there's these times where we do it. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need then to do is be able to individually know how to become multidimensional, so that I know what my mind is doing, but I'm able to let the mind be of service to my higher awareness. So now we've been letting the mind run the show. We built all this to the level of mind, but we've tapped that out. We need to include and transcend the mind. And the mind freaks out because, you know, we learn, basically the mind's job is to keep us safe, and we're asking it to be in service of something else. And that's brand new for, you know, for how we've operated personally and collectively.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to have a methodology where we begin to really learn how to be multidimensional, and you again use the mind in service to higher knowing. And then we can, once we, you know, kind of get that stabilized, then it's easier to enter into these group fields, because I know how to bow down to my own mind going freaking out, and I can bow down to the intelligence of a group. So it's a higher level of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So and again, once more and more people are able to do that, not only does it then, you know, transmit to others, so it becomes easier for other people to be able to do it, but also because there's a wider and larger coherent field of it, beings that already have this online can incarnate into this, and it's much easier for them. So you see younger generations of people that are actually able, they don't have to go through what we went through. Okay.
Yeah.
they're able to you know, they've got more of this online because of the work that happened here, but also because you know, their Gaia, the Harmonia is ready for this next, she's in this next, she's come online, and it's calling now in this new kind of awareness, multidimensional intelligence. So that's sort of a long-winded answer, but
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I love the conversation. And, you know, also in your film, you had a very beautiful graphic of the tipping point. So are we going to make that tipping point? Or are we going to, you know, there's a lot of people that seem optimistic and pessimistic about whether we're
Right.
going to tip the quote, the better way.
Well, what I love about my film is that what I'm talking about here is that, yeah, that we're in a tipping point as at the status quo. But all of a sudden, when we begin to understand that we are entering into a new paradigm, there's no skill sets, the consciousness of the planet Harmonia has come online and is now able to set the probabilities for this whole, and that we can tap into that consciousness and be guided by that consciousness. And that, in fact, we're still individuated, but we're now being guided by it, consciously or unconsciously. That adds a whole nother set of high probabilities that and possibilities that are incredibly positive.
Well, I
So I
like
feel very
that.
optimistic. Yeah, I feel very optimistic because something has included and transcended the limitations of our mind.
Mhm.
And that's what Einstein was talking about.
Excellent. Well, speaking of mind, you were going to lead us in a meditation. Is that about
Yes.
time for
So,
that?
so
Or?
yeah. So yes, I'd like to do that. What I do in my courses is I bring people up to their higher centers or their higher capacity, one of their higher chakras, and I include we have neurons in our gut, that give us intelligence. We have neurons in our heart that give us intelligence. Of course, we have this brain that gives us massive amounts of data. So I bring us to the higher self, where then we can include the heart's intelligence and include the gut's intelligence and the mind's capacity to think. And then we can just begin then to be a witness to that. And then what I also do in my courses, I begin to teach how to access that higher intelligence and get specific information. And
Go ahead.
so
Well, I
that,
was
and
going to
so
say, you need to tell us how we contact you to more about your courses. Are they ongoing? Are they evergreen?
yeah, I have a
Are they
new one. I have a
live?
new one. They're live because it's a lot of transmission and it's a lot of, the way I teach it is that I send out videos ahead of time every week for like 2 to 4 videos ahead of time every week. It's an 8-week course, and they hold all the cognitive material so that you can watch those videos as often as you want. Some people go, oh yeah, I know this, and other people go, wow, I got to watch this a few times, So
Help you,
people
Bob.
can go because like the people can go, yeah, but I do some pretty basic stuff. I introduce the lightbody, I introduce chakras, I introduce, so everybody's on the same page. So some of that material is pretty basic, but I want the vocabulary to be consistent. So so there's that part of the course that's cognitive. Then there's the part of the course that's experiential, where I teach the modalities and we begin to experience how basically I'm developing a somatic interface between our physical nervous system and our subtle nervous system so that we learn how to work with our higher capacities in a somatically based way. And then then on Wednesdays, there's a practice session. So there's 3 components of that, and then there's homework. You have practices, and so it lasts 8 weeks, 8.5 if you include the practice class, and I have a new one starting on September 21st.
September 21st, International Day of Peace.
Saturday. Oh wow! Oh beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it starts at it'll be noon on Eastern on Saturdays.
Oh, okay, very good. And we will go to amahsia.com to.
Yeah, you'll see the training. You'll see trainings there, and then there's 2 pages. You can get a description of the training, and then each of the 8 individual modules, and they dovetail totally with the film. So what I'm saying that we need these higher capacities. These are the higher capacities, and these are how we get to train these skill sets. So it dovetails right with the film.
Awesome. Well, that film is just sensational. I'm going to say needs to be in some film festivals. Needs to have some of those award stickers all over it.
Thank you. And I'm going that direction. I'm getting enough feedback that so I need to do a new version of it, a little bit better. Some shift. I know it's close. Well, thank you. It's close. Wow.
That was pretty good myself.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm I come out of New York as a designer. I spent, 25 years in Manhattan as a designer. So I have such an eye for my dad was a scientist, and so I have a artistic and it's interesting.
So that is how you came to be with your creative side, with your scientific dad and your own.
Yeah. My mom was an artist. So anyway, let me
Oh, okay.
if we go a few minutes over time, is that okay? If just not
Sure,
much, but
sure.
just a few. Okay.
That's
So I'll
fine.
just um
Is it okay if I spotlight you?
but sure.
Okay. Then I will disappear here. There you go. You're spotlighted.
So yeah, so what I'm going to do is we're just going to somatically or physiologically be in this process. We're not going to learn any new techniques. We're just going to see what this feels like. So what I'd like you to do, we're going to start with just being aware of your body. And I really like to work with the effect that gravity has on the body and how it gives you weight and connects you to the chair. So just feel the back of your legs, your sit bones, your buttocks, and how you're connected to the chair. And then let that very physical sense rise up so you can begin to feel your pelvic floor and your lower abdomen. Let your awareness move up through your abdomen into the upper part of your abdomen where your solar plexus is, below your diaphragm. And relax your belly. And then move your awareness through your diaphragm into your chest cavity. And here I'd like you to connect with your physical beating heart, resting between your lungs. And even as you connect to the physical heart, you can get a sense of its electromagnetic quality, its profound intelligence, its discernment, its own awareness. You could be aware of your breathing here as well. And what I'd like you to do is to continue your way upward, moving your awareness up between your shoulders, up into your throat. You can begin to feel your jaw, and whether it's tense or soft. You can be aware of your face, your eyes, the area behind your eyes, and the top of your head and your forehead, the whole brain, the intelligence of your mind and your thinking capacities, your analytical, observant self. Now what I'd like you to do is to bring your awareness a little bit to the top of your head and just above your head. And there I'd like you to imagine just like a ball of light, like a tennis size ball, like a tennis ball, size of light. It could be any color you want. And it's just sitting on the top of your head. And what I'd like you to do is to let that ball of light rise up, just with your mind's eye and your imagination. Let it rise up about 3 inches. You're going to begin to feel a little bit of an energetic shift here. Let that ball rise up another 3, so you got about 6 inches. And keep going, 9 inches. Let it rise up about a foot above your head. Or if you're into metrics, 1/3 of a meter. Your energy field is shifting as you're raising this ball up. Let it move up about 1.5 feet, half a meter. Let it keep rising up 2 feet above the top of your head. You're really beginning to shift here. We're all doing it. And then bring that ball of light up higher to about 3 feet above the top of your head. I'd like you just to be aware of what this feels like, what your body feels. And if you get any energetic sensations, you might even begin to feel a little sleepy. You might have an emotional reaction. Your mind might be thinking a lot. Your body might be tense. Whatever it is, just be aware as you connect with this chakra at the very top of your auric field. You're connecting now to your soul star chakra, and it's a point of individuation between your incarnation and the will of your soul. This is your higher self and the seat of your higher capacities. Connects you with your purpose for incarnating. And it is the guiding force for your incarnation. And what I'd like to do now is to let that ball of light just slowly come back down 2 feet, 1.5 feet, half a meter. Let it continue to move down as it approaches the top of your head. And again, let yourself feel what this connection feels like as we move your awareness down into your head. Just be aware of how all this feels. And bring that awareness down through your head and into your neck. Between your shoulders. Let it move down into your chest, connecting with your physical beating heart. Move your awareness down through your diaphragm, down to your solar plexus, and into the intelligence of your abdomen, and the gut, and the basic intelligence of its wisdom. Moving to the floor of your pelvis. We're going to continue a little bit down here now. We're going to continue with a line of will that goes down, following this path, down to the floor beneath you. Let your awareness move through the floor till it connects down to the surface of the earth. And let it enter down into the earth, into the cool, dark earth. Go about 3 feet down. Dark. Go about 5 feet. Keep stretching. We're going to stretch to 15 feet below the surface. So go to 10 feet down, about 5 meters, not about 2.5 meters, excuse me. And keep going to about 15 feet down. And rest here. What you have here is a pool of energy. It's your own chi pool. It's an aspect of your incarnation. And you're just connecting with it. And that connection itself allows for you to tap into this chi pool. And the chi that you need to replenish yourself and your life flows to you. Nourishing you. Again, now we can bring our awareness to our heart. And it is from this place that I say thank you for asking me to participate here with you today. Thank you for the time we've spent together in this beautiful invitation. And when we're ready, we can close our eyes and join each other in the room.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a most unique meditation. It was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, these are your centers. Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Thank
really
you.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. Very beautiful.
Well, this was a lovely time flew. So I really, really appreciate the depth of conversation. We covered so many different topics, and
We did.
really
And we didn't,
appreciate it.
I can add in whatever video and anything that you want, but I loved the conversation. It was just really beautiful. And
Thank you.
I'm excited to share this with others. And her website is amahsia.com. And also, you can go to, she's very generous with this film. You can go to YouTube and you can find it there, or you can go to her website. The name of the film is Unprecedented Leap. And that's what we're in right now. And
Yes.
that's what Barbara Marx Hubbard always said. This is a time of breakdown before breakthrough, and that our crisis is a birth. So take a breath.
Wow.
Take a hold breath.
So thanks for joining us tonight. And thank you, Amah. So beautiful.
Oh, you're both an absolute delight. And thank you for the incredible questions. I so appreciated it. It's a great conversation.
Great conversation.
Thank you. We'll find other ways we can support the work. Thank you.
Thank you.